Infantry formations are some of the most heavily armed units on the battlefield. Their crew-served weapons, guided missiles, and light anti-tank weapons make dug-in infantry tremendously difficult to destroy or overrun. If tanks enter into the same hex as infantry, they risk being destroyed by massed flank shots, while ATGMs give infantry substantial standoff power. Despite all of this, infantry are some of the most vulnerable formations on the battlefield. Cold War-era infantry are always mounted either in APCs or IFVs, allowing for rapid cross-country movement. Some of these vehicles, like the BMP or Bradley, are equipped with ATGMs and autocannons, allowing them to support their dismounts with additional firepower. Despite their heavy armament, these vehicles are not well armored. While providing protection from explosive fragments and small arms, dedicated anti-tank weapons will shred these carriers and the infantry inside them. Infantry on the defensive should be placed in complex terrain. Complex terrain hexes have high levels of cover and concealment. Dug-in infantry are incredibly durable and will require your opponent to either mass their fire or commit heavy artillery to clear them out. When planning your defense, you must pay attention to what weapons your infantry and their carriers are armed with. If your troops don't have ATGMs with standoff range, it is usually a good idea to set them to only fire at point-blank ranges, set up for ambushes alongside roads in concealed positions, or conduct a reverse slope defense. A reverse slope defense is a fighting position behind the crest of a hill or ridge. In exchange for you giving up the high ground, the enemy is forced to advance blindly, often piecemeal, into a short-range engagement as they crest. By forcing a close-range fight, your infantry is on far more equal footing against enemy armor. Concealed positions like this are also difficult to observe, which helps preserve your force against enemy artillery. If your carriers are not heavily armed and can't contribute to a firefight, it may be a good idea to have them hide instead of support their dismounts. This will reduce vehicle losses from direct fire and reduce the visibility of the unit, increasing chances of a successful ambush. On the offensive, mechanized infantry are used to capture and hold complex terrain. Cities and dense forests held by enemy troops are death traps for tanks. At some point, you will need to commit riflemen to occupy and clear complex terrain. Infantry perform well at this task when committed with mass and artillery support. The challenge here is closing the distance without taking catastrophic losses. Infantry platoons and companies can be quickly annihilated if caught in open terrain. To help mitigate risk when conducting an infantry assault, set up other units in supporting positions to cover the attack, and use preparatory artillery fire to suppress enemy units. While many modern fighting vehicles will have thermal imaging, most infantry units will not. Don't neglect using smoke shells to help close the distance when faced with ATGMs and enemy dismounts. Move through complex terrain during the approach so that your infantry have both cover and concealment. Be sure to use the SOP manager to dismount your troops at the appropriate distance before contact. While a dismounted attack is slower, your infantry are far less vulnerable outside of the carrier, where they can spread out and take cover. It's not unusual to dismount 1 to 2 kilometers before your objective. Cannons and missiles can punch out multiple kilometers, but the ultimate culmination of an assault remains an infantryman with a rifle taking and holding ground. If you can get your infantry into position intact and in good condition, you can execute decisive assaults and seize key terrain.